Hey, what's going on, guys? Big news today. We got a lot to talk about. The Hammerhead preview has finally dropped for Star Wars Armada, and it is bonkers with a capital B. Let's get started. So let's look at the ship itself first. This was the first thing I wanted to see, and wow. So the Hammerhead comes in two varieties. It comes in with a torpedo Corvette that is only 36 points. 5 hull on this thing. 5 hull. Wow. I mean, 36 points and 5 hull. You still have 2 shields in the front and then at least 1 shield everywhere else. And it can go up to speed 3. It's pretty maneuverable at speeds 1 and 2. Speed 3, it loses some maneuverability, but that's to be expected. It also has 3 defense tokens instead of 2. It's got an evade, a redirect, and a contain. So that's pretty surprising too. I was expecting only 2 because it was going to be a little bit cheaper. Not only does it have the officer, offensive retrofit, and weapons team, but it also has the ordnance upgrade, which allows you to do a whole lot of different upgrades with this thing potentially. Now, we did expect it was going to have this because of the external racks that were debuted, but it's just very, very interesting that the cheaper version has this. 36 points means you can fit 10 of these in a list and still have room for just about any commander. 10 ships, all that can shoot a lot potentially. That's just nuts. Just nuts. I mean, come on, guys. 10 ships. This Riken is smiling. Riken is smiling quite a bit. So all right, so let's look at the Scout Corvette, which is really the one that drove me insane. Still, like, all the stats are the same. We're upgrading from a black to a blue on the anti-squadron, but instead of ordnance, we get a turbo laser slot. Oh my goodness! Our 2 red dice in the front with a turbo laser makes this the cheapest TRC platform in the game, and wow! I mean, you don't even have to do that. You can potentially put, anything else. You can add red dice to the sides of this thing with enhanced armament, making it a Akbar option, or you could put spinal armament on there and give it, it doesn't have any dice in the back, so you'd be adding dice to the rear, which had no dice otherwise, and making it 3 dice in the front. It's just nuts for it to be that cheap and to be that powerful. I'm not mad. I'm actually thrilled. I feel bad a little bit because I feel like the Empire is just never going to get the small ship options and the cheap filler options. And it's not that I just want to swarm with these things. It's also the filler options too, is that, you're going to have enough points to be able to do maybe a decked out Liberty and then a fairly decked out assault frigate, so you can have 2 like heavy attacking ships and still have enough points left over this way to have like maybe a 5 ship list, and all of the rest of the filler ships are actually good ships that can attack. So this is not just it's cheap and we can swarm. Sometimes you need, a 40-point ship that can actually roll some red dice and score some hits. And that's amazing. This is strong. How many times have you got putting together a list and you're like, I've only got 100 points left, Well, now you can fit 2 ships and have points left over for squadrons. This opens up list building. The cheaper ships really open up list building, and it's great, and it's a shame that I don't think the Empire is going to be able to match this. I don't know. All right, but let's talk about some of the other upgrades that we're going to get with this thing. Let's talk about our titles first. We've already seen Geralt's Honor, so I want to talk about the new titles. Task Force Antilles. So this one is the more expensive of the 2 generic. Now these are also the first generic titles. You can put multiple copies of this. So Task Force Antilles. When you suffer damage from an attack, you may choose and exhaust a copy of this card on another friendly ship at distance 1 to 3. If you do, that ship suffers 1 of your damage instead. While this card is exhausted, you cannot spend engineering points. So this is, and both of these have this when this card is exhausted thing. So your timing is going to be very important when using this card. But this is the idea, is you want to have a bunch of these flying together, and they can kind of spread out the damage. Think of like what Biggs does for squadrons. He's going to do this for ships. Now, and this is also extremely, extremely deadly with Riken, because now, you fly, your torpedo Corvette into close range, and now I've got black dice on you, double arc, all this crazy stuff. Well, now if I don't get quite enough, if I get just enough damage to kill you, maybe you might manage to get into range 1 without being shot, and you've still got 5 hull, 2 shields in the front, 1 on the side, so it would take me 8 damage to kill you. Right? Now, a Star Destroyer or a Liberty or something like that can do that. But now, that's not even going to be enough. Because if you've got Task Force Antilles, they can spread that damage out. So it might take, 10 damage or 9 damage to kill you. Or if you're running Mon Mothma, well, we're talking about Riken right here. Because Mon Mothma, you can even do some stuff there too. But Riken, all it takes, you just have to spread the damage out enough to where you survive the turn. And then next turn, you're guaranteed to survive the whole turn. So that's just really, really, I foresee some swarms of this with Riken being a real thing, because you can spread them out just long enough for them to survive one more turn, and then you're locked in for the whole rest of that turn. So that's really, really nasty. Now let's talk about Task Force Gana. Now this one's only 1 point, and this one I think is going to confuse some people, because I was confused initially the first time I read it. While attacking, you may choose and exhaust a copy of this card on another friendly ship at distance 1 to 3 to reroll up to 2 attack dice. While this card is exhausted, you cannot attack ships. So the idea is you fly a swarm of them together again. All right, I'm my point man, I'm Leia, maybe I've got 1 in the front and 2 behind him. My front man attacks, has a couple of blanks or whatever. All right, let's exhaust a Task Force Gana on the other ship. All right, now I get to reroll. Of course, you only do this if you really need to. You wouldn't use this to turn a hit into a double hit, or to reroll anything that was marginally okay. You only would use this if you really needed to reroll 2 dice. Or if the other ship was not going to have a shot anyway. Like if you have a whole ton of activations and they're already done, you're not going to be able to have a shot anyway, or maybe you only want to attack squadrons, no problem. But another thing about this is you can do this. This can be on a ship that's already attacked, and that's, I think, the strength of this ship, this title, or even the Antilles title. Both of the Task Force titles, I think, work best if you've already activated the ship. Then you're not going to spend any engineering points, or you're not going to attack a ship because you already have attacked a ship. So, and you're going to ready all cards that are exhausted at the end anyway. So that's good. Although this does open you up to a big vulnerability. The MS-1 ion cannons. Now, this is an upgrade that has almost never seen play as far as I am concerned. I have never seen anyone actually run this. It came out around the same time as the interdictor, and so the idea was that you'd use the MS-1 to shut down interdictor upgrades that required to be exhausted. Or you could also use it for an ECM, but it was very, very niche. Well, here's a way that makes it extremely, extremely powerful, and I think I could see possibly running this upgrade now, because if you go up against one of these, especially the Task Force Gana, if I am able to trigger that, you don't get to even shoot at all. So that's really nasty. And not only do you not get to shoot, you don't get to trigger it and help somebody else. So it's like double damage if I'm able to trigger, tap that upgrade. So that is particularly nice. So let's talk about Cham Syndulla, or Syndulla, however you want to say it. Cham was actually spoiled this morning, I guess, or yesterday in a magazine, but so he was talked about a little bit earlier today, so you probably have maybe already seen Cham, but he is just like the boarding parties. He uses the weapons team and the offensive retrofit. He costs 5 points, and when you reveal a command, you can discard a squadron dial or token and this card to choose an enemy ship at close range. If you do, you may set a new command for each of their command dials assigned to that ship. You get to set basically all of them. If they haven't activated yet, like you can change all 3 Star Destroyer commands. It's just nuts. That's totally nuts. That's amazingly good. And it's basically Slicer Tools on steroids, because Slicer Tools lets you do the top. This one lets you do all 3. So this is especially damaging to Command 3 ships. This is especially damaging to Star Destroyers, Victory Class Star Destroyers, Imperial Star Destroyers, MC-80s. It's very, very nasty. So that's going to strike fear into some people's hearts, because it's not so easy. There are counters to it. The Rebels can usually do something like Leia, which will counter that, but Leia Crew, not Leia Commander. We're going to talk about her some more too. But the Empire, I don't think they really have a whole lot. Maybe a Resco, but you can do a little bit. but he's very, very hard to counter, and people aren't going to be running stuff just to counter Cham. And at 5 points, I could see using him. I wouldn't use him in every list, but I would give him a shot. That's nasty. All right, Hondo Anaka. Let's talk about Hondo. So Hondo reads, at the start of the ship phase, you can discard this card to choose up to 2 different command tokens and place them on 2 different ships. Then your opponent chooses 2 different command tokens, different than the ones that you did, and places them on 2 different ships. So that's really, really something. It's so interesting, and it's quirky, and I think it fits Hondo's personality. But the idea here is you're going to pick, there's 4 command tokens. So we're talking about the concentrate fire, the engineer, the nav, and the squadron token. And you can play this, it's almost like a game of poker. You can say, all right, well, I've destroyed most of your squadrons, so a squadron token for you wouldn't really do anything. So I'll pick 2 other ones and leave you with the squadron token and a nav. So like if I choose concentrate fire and engineering, or if I choose nav and engineering, you're left with the other 2. And I put them on 2 different ships. So for this to work for me, I kind of have to have at least 2 ships remaining. And the caveat there is 2 ships that can benefit from the 2 different tokens I want to give them, which is fine. Obviously, you're probably not going to run Hondo with a Garm Beliblis fleet. I mean, I don't see that. I don't see you ever running really Garm Beliblis ever again. But I can see this being a pretty cool option. He's only 2 points, which is very cheap, and if the meta shifts away from flotillas running, CommsNet, then I can really see this being useful. The only problem is it does give your opponent something too. But if you're very strategic about the way you do it, especially if you're first player, because if you have the chance, like if they only have 2 ships left and you have the chance to blow one of them up, then they're really getting almost nothing out of it. So it's cool. You get the choice. It gives you a lot of power. But this is one that does give your opponent something also. So it's potentially, you have to, before you use this, you have to really think about what is not going to really help my opponent. Like maybe they're in a position where a nav token isn't going to matter because you've got them dead to rights at any speed. Or maybe they're in a position where an engineering token isn't going to matter because they're in range 1 of your, Star Destroyer, well, not Star Destroyer, your Liberty, and you're going to kill them, and they've only got 1 hull left, and getting 1 shield back isn't even going to matter because you've got like 8 damage coming to them, or something like that. But I think Hondo will be fun, and I don't always play this game to be super competitive. Sometimes I play the game to have a really good time, and so I'm very grateful for cards like Hondo. I don't think Hondo will be in a list that wins worlds, but I think Hondo will be in the list that wins hearts. Okay, that's too corny. I'm going to have to edit that out. Leia, let's talk about Leia. Now, people have already they've already been able to figure out what Leia does, but I haven't talked about Leia yet, so I'm going to talk about Leia. Leia is awesome. So basically what she does is when you reveal a command, you get the command and the token. You don't get the you get the effect of having the command dial and the token, the combined effect. So she makes all of your commands way stronger. But the caveat is you can't have done another command, or you can't do another command. So she's very single purpose. She's the exact opposite of Hondo, because she's all about, no, we're going concentrate fire and we're going all the way. You're going to get an extra die and you're going to get an extra reroll. And everybody's going to, and that factors so well into these hammerheads, especially for 41 points for like the Scout Corvette. You got 2 red dice in the front at long range. Well, now let's add a 3rd and a reroll. Now you're statistically going to get really good damage out of that. That's almost like having Vader for the Rebels in certain lists. In ships where in lists like with CR90s and hammerheads, Leia is going to take the place of Vader because you can afford to do concentrate fire and you'll get the reroll every turn. That's great. Also, if for some reason in a ship like this, especially with engineering value of only 2, you get a crit that really stinks, like you can't attack at long range or something like that. Now an engineer command actually gives you the 3 points, so it gives you enough to fully get rid of that card. So if you have to, you can, and they're command 1 ships. So Leia is just amazing for stuff like this. She'll work well. She can even allow squadron value ships, or squadron value 1 ships, to actually work as effective carriers, because because in that case the token only gives you 1, so it effectively doubles your squadron. And that's something I don't know if a lot of people are really going to think about, but that was one of the first things I thought about when I saw her. It's like, well, a CR90 can now issue 2 squadron commands, and that's pretty strong because it's double the squadron value. And, you know, whereas if I used an assault frigate to do a squadron command with Leia, yes, I'd still get the one more, but it's not as impactful because it's only one more on top of 3, so it brings it from 3 to 4, as opposed to bringing it from 1 to 2, which is double. And, you know, so I don't know. To me, it seems very cool. And I think if you're trying to squeeze a whole lot of death by 1,000 cuts into a list where you want, you know, maybe 4 Corvettes, 3 CR90s, and 4 Hammerheads, something like that, and also want to be able to give squadron commands, Leia can make that happen, and that could be something else. So what do you think? What do you think of this ship? I really want to hear about it because I'm blown away by this thing. I really am impressed that it has the upgrades it has, especially the turbo laser slot. I was not expecting that. So obviously I'm going to want to run a couple of these with TRCs, pair them up with the CR90s, run them all together with TRCs, see which ones outperform what, you know. More hull on this. So, wow. That's something else. And I think what the Hammerhead lacks that the CR90 has are things that the CR90 doesn't really need. Like the defensive retrofit. Who needs a defensive retrofit on a CR90? Like, I've never put anything on there. I never will. Never will. Not going to happen. On here, though, I could see maybe doing reinforced blast doors on a 5-hull ship. It might work there, but I don't know. But I want to hear what you think. So let me know. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this expansion. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe and click the little bell to get alerts. We are going to have these ships probably hitting stores in about 2 weeks, 2 to 3. So probably second half, maybe later in this month, they should be on store shelves. And if you haven't already liked this video, if you liked it, thank you guys so much for watching and have a wonderful day.